Hello, everyone. It is time for a review of the 14th studio album by Australian pop goddess Kylie Minogue. The album is titled Golden, and it was just released this past Friday, April 6th, this year, 2018. This album is 4 years after her previous album, Kiss Me Once, which came out in 2014. So she's been a little bit of a hiatus. So she did release a Christmas album in 2016. I don't count Christmas albums necessarily as like official studio albums sometimes, even though I guess I should technically, that would consider why this is her 14th album, not her 13th. But anyway, besides the matter, Golden is a golden album. In terms of visually, you get that golden aesthetic with the album cover. It's a little stripped back in terms of the set design and everything. It's more kind of her just in her cowboy boots. She's embracing this sort of country style, which isn't really country, but it's very kind of banjo influenced and guitar kind of driven country melodies. And it's a little bit more sing-song, but that doesn't mean that we're not still dealing with a lot of pop production here. So I would just want to point out that as of today, if you ever type in Kylie Minogue Golden onto Google and you look at the Wikipedia entry that kind of comes up in the top right, it says that the genre of the album is heavy metal. I'm not even joking. So I don't know when that's going to be changed, but that's just currently how it stands. I think it's pretty hilarious. I think someone's trying to play a little bit of a joke. This is definitely not heavy metal music. Kylie served as the executive producer on this record, along with heavy of other producers. She then traveled to Nashville during the recording of this album to record 4 songs for this record, and so that's where the country influence comes in, as she describes Dolly Parton on the dance floor. This isn't necessarily a revolutionary idea, but it is something that for Kylie's career is quite a change, although as people pointed out in my dancing review, the lead single off of this album, Kylie has flirted with country before. I mean, she has 14 albums. She's going to have a diverse sound, and she's going to have songs that border on that territory. So it's not too left field for her. Personally, I don't have a problem with this change in direction. I think it makes the album feel a little cohesive as a different thing. You know, it's important to change up a little. But the undeniable catchy pop melody structure is something that she still is not straying from whatsoever on this record. Now, I'm going to be completely honest. There are some really good songs, I think, that uphold Kylie's positive, get you up on the dance floor, jubilant sort of sounding pop music. There are songs that work, and there are songs that don't so well for me on this record, and that's not necessarily something I was surprised about. I kind of expect in a Kylie record, especially a more recent Kylie record, a little bit more of a mixed bag. That's not to say necessarily that it's objectively bad. I just, for me personally, and this is all personal preference, there are certain songs I would definitely skip on this record, and so I'm going to spend more time talking about the songs I really do like instead of harping on the things I don't like. I don't like on this channel to just criticize. I know, I mean, that's what critics are supposed to do, and trust me, at certain times I will feel the need to do it. But personally, I like to talk more about things I like and give positive leaning reviews that have constructive criticism, rather than just harp on and say, this is terrible, I wish you'd never done this, I wish you'd never done that. To just linger for one more moment on the negatives, there are songs I do feel that fall onto a very sort of generic sound of dance pop with that little country aesthetic that just feel like they're flailing around for a catchy melody. The problem is that, you know, Kylie's voice is great, but when it's mixed into the production, so in my opinion, like almost overdone, her voice can get a little whiny and a little bit, I don't know, it's not like off note or it's not off key. It's just not the most pleasant thing to listen to as it kind of goes through some of these choruses that I feel like are a little bit lazy in certain areas. And possibly because other songs just feel a little bit like rehashed territory. Dancing and Stop Me From Falling, the two kind of big singles so far from this album, in track 1 and 2 on this record, I sometimes have a little bit of trouble distinguishing the melodies apart from one another because they're actually quite similar, not just in lyrical content, but in the general sound and production and chorus structure. They're very jubilant and fun and sing-song pop songs with country edges, and that's great. But it would be a little nicer to sort of see something a little bit more diverse. There's actually very few moments where this album sounds too different in structure. There's one song that is in the deluxe edition called Low Blow, which actually closes out this album, which is kind of the only song that has a very kind of different pop structure to it. It's much more about the beat and rhythm, and it's a little bit jazzier. And that's something that's actually quite welcoming. I'm not necessarily saying that song's a standout, but it's definitely something that you're like, "Ah, this is different." And I like that, and it's only on the deluxe edition. But don't get me wrong, there are a few moments of ballads on this record, and I will highlight those as they are quite strong. My favorite song on this record being Music's Too Sad Without You featuring Jack Savoretti. This is my favorite song on this record. It's so atmospheric, it's so melodic and beautiful, and all at the same time so emotionally pained. That's such an important sentiment to carry across, that the music has no joy in it anymore now that you're gone. That life has suddenly all become so much more dull. And this song carries that melancholic, reflective attitude so beautifully into the swelling production and the swelling sort of emotional feel behind it. I highly recommend this song. If you download one song off this album, I recommend this is the one you download. I've talked about the first two songs, Dancing. Personally, if I had to pick Dancing or Stop Me From Falling, I actually, at first, I liked Dancing more. Now I kind of like Stop Me From Falling more. Stop Me From Falling has something about it that feels a little bit more memorable. Maybe because in the verse to pre-chorus to chorus structure, there's a little bit more variation. I love the pre-hook, even though the chorus would be in the category of what I would consider a little bit of a cop-out, as it has a lot of that millennial whoop ooh sound that just kind of carries through the melody line. And there's some very sort of almost borderline grating production going on where they're trying to incorporate country guitars into a very dance floor-esque sound. There's something that kinda grows on you about it, and maybe you just get used to it and you don't mind it so much. And Dancing is cute, and they are, like I said, so similar. The highlights being when Kylie has these moments in the verses where her, very crystalline and kind of girly voice really punches through. There's just some very minimal change-ups in the melodies between the verse 1 and verse 2 that make the song for me. If they didn't have slight melodic changes placed in there strategically, these songs would feel way too repetitive and almost forgettable. So they're very fun, they're very danceable, they're not too serious, and yet at the same time they are dealing with the overarching theme of mortality, if I go out, I want to go out dancing. And then for Stop Me From Falling, although it's not literally so much about falling off of a cliff, it's using that analogy of, I'm getting too close to you, and it's almost like you want to fall. It's not necessarily telling her partner that she doesn't want to be in love with him, but she is sort of talking and cheekily hinting at the fact that falling for him is probably no good for her, but she doesn't care. She's going to fall for him, and the more he kind of flirts with her, the more she just kind of falls into the rhythm of falling in love. I don't know how or don't know where, but we're becoming more than friends. It was completely against the fate's decision at first in terms of our perspectives, but this is what's happening. Another song, Golden, which is the title track off of this record, I definitely wanted to highlight. This song feels very Australian. It has a very unique country instrumental that sort of plays off of that harmonica that you would hear in an old Western. That doo which gives it a little bit of a wilderness feel. And so it carries through the very sort of pulsating rhythmic melody of this song. And of course, this is about overall positivity and living your life to the fullest. Stay golden. I knew that the theme for this record was going to be very broad and general about being the best that you can be, being unapologetically you, being your golden version of yourself. A Lifetime to Repair is a song that I wish the chorus was stronger for, because I really do love the verses. That country instrumental is so beautiful, and it's a little bit less produced, so it just really feels down to earth and rooted. But then the chorus comes in and it's all this production kind of thrown in, all of this instrumental meshed together. It's just a lot of sound. And so it kind of, especially after hearing Dancing and Stop Me From Falling, you're sort of like, I feel like I've heard this before. And that's the trouble that a lot of these songs fall under. Shelby 68 is another highlight that I'd like to just point out. This song uses a propelling beat rhythm to just carry a groove and a vibe, which again is very different from the very sort of more traditional dance pop songs on this record, and it's quite welcoming. It's a lot more chill out, and it feels like you can focus a little bit more on the lyrics for the first time. I mean, there's only a few songs where the lyrics really want to stand out, and that's a problem with a lot of dance songs. Often I don't pay that much attention to the lyrics. I kind of just listen to the melodies, and I just kind of groove to the instrumentals. So, reminiscing on a moment where they were driving in this old car and this feeling and connection, you really get the energy coming through. It's not my favorite song, but it's definitely a memorable standout. The one other song I have to highlight is Radio On. Unlike the title might imply, this song is actually a lot more chilled out and acoustic than you might think. Her vocals in this song are the most hushed and refined, and it's the most acoustically bent song on this record, and that's one of the most welcoming things about it. It's so inviting and atmospheric. It definitely has that Dolly Parton influence, and I love the instrumental as it's just a nice guitar with some very beautiful backing vocals that feel very echoed out and very carrying of the emotion that this song is trying to get at, this sort of melancholic reflection that she looks towards thinking about turning on a song to distract her from the thoughts in her head about a relationship. That carries well very beautifully, and it's a very good vibe and energy, low energy ballad. And it's one of the highlight songs again on this record, along with Music's Too Sad Without You. Ultimately, I do think Kylie is stronger when she kind of strips everything back and just sort of delivers a really endearing melody with some very down to earth instrumentals. I think the pop stuff is, she's done it for so long and it is great, but sometimes it feels very formulaic. And ultimately, I do find to be especially the choruses, like maybe it was just a little bit too thrown together, and it just it falls apart almost every time in the choruses for so many of these pop songs. That's not to say again that some of them are not bad. I just find them to be not as I have to call home about. Let me know what you think about this record. It's a very, cohesive and succinct record, and they do sound very much like they were all recorded for one album. And I do get the feeling of a very sort of aware, a liberated, wanting to explore, but also reflecting on the past sort of Kylie, which would be very emblematic of where she is in her life now. It's not so much focused on sex. It's not so much focused on sassiness or any of that like some of her previous records were. And it creates a very grounded essence, which definitely goes along with the aesthetic. But like I said, with the pop melodies, they could be a little bit stronger for me. Let me know what you think in the comments. I definitely didn't want to spend too much time talking about negative things about this record. I really wanted to find the positives, and trust me, I don't think this is a bad record. Kylie Minogue is not my favorite artist of all time, so I'm not going to be one of those artists who just loves everything an artist puts out. That's not what reviewers should do. And I definitely feel like there's just pros and cons to a lot of sounds and scare aspects of these kind of this music. So I hope you enjoyed this review. Like I said, I have reviewed her lead single, and I will review more Kylie on this channel down the road. I mean, I probably won't get to every single album, but I'll definitely review some of the ones I really like. And I probably will do also like a top 10 Kylie Minogue video where I'll talk about my favorite singles of hers as like a countdown. Thank you so much for watching. Please give this video a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Hope you have a wonderful day. Stay golden. Bye.